looking everywhere, that's how the story goes. Grab your gear.
Intro for the zombie story zone in the heart of ancient India, when kingdoms thrived with palaces of gold, jeweled courtyards, and dancers draped in silks, a story was born that no bard dared to tell aloud. It begins with beauty, passion, and desire, with women whose allure could sway kings, and men whose strength commanded armies. Love bloomed in the moonlit gardens where anklets chimed and veils fluttered like fire. But in those same shadows lurked whispers of something darker. A poison older than gods, a curse carried from the churning of the cosmic ocean. As desire burned hotter, as lovers surrendered to seduction, the boundaries between life and death blurred. The courtyards of passion slowly became the halls of horror. Beautiful maidens with ruby lips carried venom in their kiss. Warriors who once fought for glory now fought to keep their souls from being devoured. Every embrace was both a promise of love and a brush with death. This is not just a tale of kings and queens, of dancers and warriors. It is the tale of the undead rising from lust, of glamour masking decay, of passion entwined with terror. Once you step into this world, you will not leave untouched. Will beauty save the kingdom, or will desire feed the apocalypse? Stay with us on the Zombie Story Zone as we unveil this haunting saga of love, lust, and the living dead. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The next chapter awaits you. Chapter 1. The Palace of Desire. The empire of Hastinavati glimmered like a celestial vision upon the earth. Its palaces, carved from marble and inlaid with sapphires, rose high into the sky, domes crowned with sheets of gold. Gardens bloomed with roses, champa, and night-blooming jasmine, their fragrance drifting across lotus ponds where swans glided lazily. At every hour, music filled the air. Venas strummed soft melodies, anklet bells chimed in harmony with laughter, and the scent of incense clung to every corner. In this world of beauty, Princess Devika was the brightest star. Slender yet graceful, her almond-shaped eyes held the mystery of midnight. Her lips full like rose petals just kissed by dew. She wore silks the color of flame and emerald, and her every gesture carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken desires. Courtiers often whispered that even apsaras of the heavens would pale before her radiance. But Devika was not the only jewel the palace guarded. Her younger sister, Maya, playful and mischievous, possessed a charm that set every young noble's heart aflame. Unlike Devika's composed elegance, Maya danced through the halls like a wild flame, her anklets ringing as she teased and laughed, her beauty tinged with danger. And beyond the royal sisters, the palace brimmed with enchanting maidens. Priya, the court dancer, was famed for her eyes that seemed always on the brink of laughter, her every movement a melody. Kalyani, a noblewoman, dressed in sapphires and pale blue silk, held men captive with her serene poise. Rati, the handmaiden, though clad in simpler attire, had a beauty so tender that poets often lingered by the fountains just to glimpse her smile. Together, they filled Hastinavati with a chorus of beauty, like petals strewn before a god. That evening, a banquet was held in the moonlit pavilion. Rows of golden lamps burned like fallen stars, casting honeyed light upon polished marble. Women moved among the courtyards like living paintings, silk clinging to their curves, jewels glinting against dusky skin, bangles chiming with every graceful flick of a wrist. Dancers twirled to the rhythm of the mridangam, their skirts swirling in peacock hues, their bodies bending like vines in the wind. Men watched with hunger in their eyes, but when Devika entered, every glance turned only to her. Behind her, Maya followed in laughter. Priya swayed in rhythm to unheard music, and Kalyani's sapphire veil shimmered in lamplight. Together, they were a vision, an assembly of beauty that made the banquet itself seem a celestial celebration. Across the pavilion stood Arjun, tall and broad-shouldered, his eyes locked on Devika. A noble warrior, his gaze held both reverence and fire. When their eyes met, the clamor of music and laughter faded into silence, leaving only the pulse of their hearts. Later that night, as the banquet waned and dancers rested, Devika slipped into the moonlit corridors. Arjun followed, his shadow stretching across the marble. She paused by a chamber where oil lamps flickered, their flames bending as though bowing to her beauty. When he approached, she did not turn away. Their hands touched, his strong, hers delicate, silk brushing against calloused skin. Devika's breath trembled as Arjun drew her closer, their lips meeting in a kiss both forbidden and eternal. In that instant, amidst lamps and carved walls, two destinies entwined. But even as passion bloomed in secret chambers and maidens still laughed among fountains, the rippling waters of the sacred pools trembled. An ancient whisper stirred beneath the earth and ocean, carrying with it the promise that when the nectar of immortality rose, so too would the poison of death. Chapter 2. Moonlit Seduction. The night of the Festival of Lights arrived, and Hastinavati became a vision from the heavens. Thousands of clay lamps glowed across marble balconies, their flames mirrored in lotus ponds. Silk banners swayed in the breeze, and garlands of marigold draped over white-pillared archways. The city itself seemed to breathe with joy, and the palace shone brighter than the stars. The royal sisters entered the pavilion together, dazzling in their splendor. Princess Devika, in crimson and gold, carried herself like a goddess descended to earth. Beside her, Maya, dressed in shimmering silver, moved with playful mischief, her anklets chiming like laughter itself. They were flanked by their companions, Priya, the court dancer, her veil of turquoise fluttering with each graceful step, and Kalyani, noble and serene, her sapphire necklace sparkling against dusky skin. Even Radhi, the gentle handmaiden, had been adorned for the occasion, her simplicity making her seem like a lotus among roses. As the music swelled, the pavilion transformed into a dream of seduction and beauty. Noblemen and maidens mingled freely, their eyes glinting with desire. Devika found herself approached by Prince Arjun, clad in ivory silk, his presence commanding yet softened by the way his eyes sought only her. Their hands brushed when he offered her a cup of wine, a touch lingering longer than custom allowed. Their smiles spoke of secrets the court could not hear. Maya, meanwhile, drew the attention of Prince Varun, a mysterious noble newly arrived at court. With his dark eyes and shadowed smile, he seemed carved from night itself. When Maya teased him with playful words, he leaned close enough that his breath stirred the jasmine in her hair. She laughed, but her pulse raced. On the dance floor, Priya swirled like fire, her arms weaving delicate patterns, her waist bending to the rhythm of the mridangam. Rajiv, a young soldier, could not resist joining her. She laughed as he stumbled to match her grace, then guided his hands with her own, turning his awkwardness into passion. Their closeness drew whispers and knowing smiles from the crowd. Kalyani, ever serene, conversed with Vikram, a poet known for his honeyed words. As he recited a verse comparing her beauty to the first rays of dawn, Kalyani lowered her gaze, pretending modesty, though her lips curved in secret pleasure. Even Rati, usually shy, found herself in quiet company. A palace guard, Ananta, offered her sweets on a silver plate. When their fingers brushed, she blushed deeply, her eyes flickering away. Yet she did not pull her hand back. The pavilion became a tapestry of desire, hands brushing, lips whispering, eyes burning across the lamplight. The fragrance of rosewater mixed with wine, the sound of laughter melted into the thrum of drums, and the night became a celebration of beauty and longing. But as midnight approached, the air shifted. The fountains in the gardens rippled, though no wind stirred. The lotus pond, once serene, quivered as if something stirred beneath. A bitter tang seeped into the jasmine-scented air, unnoticed by most amid the revelry. Maya, leaning close to Prince Varun, caught sight of the pool shimmering unnaturally. "Did you see that?" she whispered, but his dark eyes only gleamed as he replied, "Perhaps the gods themselves are watching." And in the distance, beyond music and laughter, the waters of the sacred pool rippled again, disturbed by a force that no human hand had touched. Even as passion burned in the pavilion, the first omen had arrived. Chapter 3, The Nectar of Love. The empire of Hastinavati thrummed with fevered anticipation. Messengers had carried word of the cosmic churning of the ocean, Samudra Manthan, where gods and demons themselves labored to bring forth treasures hidden in the abyss. And most coveted of all was Amrit, the nectar of immortality. The news spread like fire through the kingdom, and the court declared nights of festivity, believing that the fortune of heaven would soon bless their land. The palace glittered more splendidly than ever. Golden drapes hung from carved arches, lamps flickered in rows like 1,000 tiny suns, and courtyards overflowed with women dressed in silks brighter than peacock feathers. The air was heavy with perfume, intoxicating like wine. Amidst this grandeur, passions burned hotter than ever. Princess Devika, radiant in emerald silk, wandered hand in hand with Prince Arjun through a lantern-lit corridor. His fingers caressed hers, and though guards passed nearby, they could not resist the stolen kisses pressed against marble walls. Desire coursed through them like fire, and her whispered laugh seemed to chase away every shadow. In the garden pavilions, Maya leaned into Prince Varun, his voice low and hypnotic as he promised that beauty such as hers deserved eternity. She tilted her head, lips brushing his ear, caught between innocence and the dangerous thrill of his touch. Her anklets jingled as he drew her closer beneath the shadows of jasmine trees. Priya, the dancer, performed a sensuous routine in the main hall, her hips swaying to the drumbeat as men cheered. Rajiv, the soldier, unable to resist, joined her once more. Their movements grew bolder, their bodies circling like fire and wind. She spun into his arms, and their lips nearly met before she slipped away with a teasing smile. Kalyani sat with Vikram, the poet, in a quieter corner. He poured her wine, his hand brushing hers deliberately. Their gazes lingered too long, their breaths too shallow. When he recited verses about forbidden desire, her eyes betrayed both hesitation and longing. Rati, sweet and shy, found herself beside Ananta, the guard. He spoke of duty, of protecting her, but when his hand rested against hers, she did not withdraw. Her cheeks flushed, her eyes lowered, and yet her lips curved in a smile too tender to mistake. Everywhere, beauty and longing danced. The palace had become a garden of desire, each corner blooming with passion. But beneath the music, the horror had already begun to slither in. In the far pool of the palace gardens, lotus petals trembled though no wind stirred. The water darkened, bubbling as though poisoned. A servant girl who went to fetch water screamed when a pale hand broke the surface. She staggered back, but no one heard her cry above the revelry. Inside the banquet hall, Devika suddenly shivered. "Did you feel that?" she whispered to Arjun, though his lips were on her neck. The lamps flickered violently, as though the air itself had grown uneasy. In another wing, Priya paused mid-dance, her gaze caught by the shadow of a figure moving unnaturally at the edge of the courtyard, its movements stiff, its limbs jerking like a puppet. She blinked, and the figure was gone. The crowd roared for her to continue, and so she forced a smile and danced again, though her heart raced. Maya, entangled in Varun's arms, thought she heard whispers, low, guttural, not of human tongue, rising from the gardens. She pulled back, but Varun only smiled, his dark eyes glinting. "The ocean stirs," he murmured, "and with it, destiny." The night pulsed with lust, laughter, and longing, but threaded through it came an unseen chill. The revelry of love and seduction stood shoulder to shoulder with the first shadow of death. And then, as dawn's first light touched the palace, a scream rang out from the gardens. A guard had fallen, his body cold, his throat torn, and even as others rushed to him, his eyes snapped open, glowing with hunger, not of this world. The nectar of immortality was indeed rising, but so too was the poison of doom. Chapter 4: The Poison Awakens. The palace of Hastinavati no longer sang only with laughter and love. It throbbed with something darker, unseen, but felt in every corner. The night after the festival lingered like an intoxicating dream. Lamps still flickered in the courtyards, garlands still perfumed the air, and the women of the palace glided through the marble halls in shimmering colis and lehengas, their jewels chiming with every movement. The men of the court, drunk on wine and desire, watched with hunger as beauty unfolded before them. Lalitha, a courtesan famed for her boldness, spun in a scarlet lehenga, the embroidered skirt swirling around her legs as she pressed herself against a nobleman, whispering promises meant only for the dark corners of the pavilion. Sundari, draped in a midnight blue choli, danced slowly before a gathering of princes, her veil slipping just enough to reveal the curve of her waist. Gasps and sighs rose as she moved closer, her eyes lingering on each man, her smile daring. Mira, a young maiden dressed in ivory, sat beside a poet who fed her pomegranate seeds one by one. When juice stained her lips, he leaned close to taste it, and she laughed, her anklets ringing like silver bells. Kamini, with hair cascading down her back, toyed with a soldier's necklace, pulling him closer until their lips met in a heated kiss by the lotus pond. The air pulsed with lust, the courtyards echoing with the soft moans of stolen embraces and the rhythm of anklets striking marble. It was as if the palace had surrendered fully to passion. But beneath this intoxicating web of beauty, the first shadows of horror slithered unseen. By the fountains where Sundari's laughter rang, the water suddenly bubbled black. A servant boy, carrying a jug, bent near to investigate, and a corpse-like hand shot out, dragging him under. His scream pierced the night, but drowned beneath the music. When the jug toppled, its water spilled red. In another hall, as Lalitha arched into the arms of her nobleman, his eyes suddenly widened. Not from desire, but from terror. Over her shoulder, he saw a dead warrior, mouth slack, eyes hollow, staggering toward them with blood crusted on his chin. Lalitha turned, her laughter dying into a shriek as the corpse lunged. Across the courtyard, Mira dropped her pomegranate when the poet beside her collapsed, his throat torn open by unseen teeth. But before she could flee, his body twitched, his head snapped upward, and his dead eyes locked onto hers with an unnatural hunger. Chaos erupted. The beautiful women in their lehengas and cholis, who moments before swayed with seduction, now screamed as corpses rose around them. Jewel-clad arms that had caressed lovers clawed desperately for escape. Bangles shattered, anklets broke as maidens fled across blood-slick marble. In the heart of the storm, Devika and Arjun drew their swords against the abomination spreading in the palace. Devika, her silk torn, still shone like a goddess, cutting through horror with fiery resolve. Beside her, Arjun's blade split flesh from bone as he defended her. Maya, clutching Varun's hand, screamed as the dead swarmed around them. Varun's dark eyes gleamed, not with fear, but with something unspoken, something dangerous. The Palace of Seduction had become a palace of screams. And yet, as the women fled and men fought desperately, one truth became clear. The dead would not stop. For every corpse that fell, two more rose, driven by hunger that could never be sated. As dawn's light threatened the horizon, the survivors gathered breathless at the temple gates. The priests whispered what everyone feared. The poison of the ocean had spilled into mortal lands, and death itself now walked among them. But when the temple bells tolled at midnight by unseen hands, everyone knew this was only the beginning. Chapter 5, The Temple of Shadows. The Temple of Shiva stood like an eternal sentinel at the edge of Hastinavati. Its black stone walls rose toward the sky, carved with scenes of gods, demons, and celestial maidens. Inside, rows of golden lamps burned, casting trembling light over incense smoke that curled upward like ghostly fingers. The survivors, breathless and bloodstained, stumbled into its sanctuary, seeking safety, seeking hope. Among them, the palace women remained visions of beauty even in terror. Devika, her crimson silk torn, still glowed with fierce elegance as she clutched Arjun's hand. The fire in her eyes was unshaken, though fear whispered around her. Maya, wrapped in silver, leaned into Varun, her lips trembling near his ear. Even in chaos, her allure burned brighter, half comfort, half seduction. Priya, still jeweled and veiled, clutched Rajiv the soldier, her bangles jingling as her hands shook against his chest. Fear only drew them closer. Their breaths mingled in a fever that felt as much desire as dread. Kalyani, serene even in ruin, stood with Vikram the poet, who kissed her hand as if beauty itself could shield them from horror. Rati, the gentle maiden, wept quietly, yet her tears were wiped away by Ananta, whose embrace became her only shield. But they were not alone. More maidens had survived the night, their lehengas torn yet clinging to their forms, their beauty stark against the temple gloom. Nalini, in green and gold, pressed her lips to a nobleman's neck, whispering that fear made love burn hotter. Chandrika, veiled in white, fell into the arms of a priest's acolyte, her sobs giving way to trembling kisses against his throat. Padma, bold even amidst terror, danced slowly in the lamplight, her choli slipping from her shoulder as if mocking death itself. A group of young men could not take their eyes from her, even as dread thickened the air. The temple became a paradox, sanctuary and seduction, fear and lust colliding. While the priests chanted mantras to hold back the poison, the younger survivors clung to each other in fevered embraces, as if love and lust were the only shields against the encroaching night. Then, the high priest spoke. When the ocean churns, nectar and poison rise together. Shiva once consumed the poison, but fragments remain. That is what animates the dead. If it enters this temple, none shall survive. The words had barely left his lips when the temple doors shuttered. Outside, the undead gathered, their moans echoing like a cursed hymn. Pale arms clawed at the carvings of gods, bloodied mouths gnawed at the sacred doors. The temple shook with their hunger. Inside, terror gripped the maidens. Sundari clutched Devika's arm, crying, "They will break through." Priya buried her face into Rajiv's chest. Padma, even then, pulled a man close, her lips pressed hungrily to his, whispering, "If this is the end, let me burn with desire first." The clash of lust and horror filled the temple. Women gasping in both fear and longing, men torn between kisses and prayers, priests shouting mantras over the sound of the undead. And then, midnight came. The temple bells tolled, though no mortal hand touched them. Each note rang heavy, echoing through the survivors' bones. Shadows twisted along the walls, shapes that were not human. The lamps flickered, threatening to extinguish. The poison of the ocean had found them.
In the shadows of the night, where the moonlight glows.
To be continued. The palace of love and pleasure is no longer the same. What began with passion, seduction, and irresistible beauty has now turned into something darker, much darker. The nectar of the gods has awoken a hunger that no kiss can satisfy, no embrace can tame. Prince Devraj and Princess Anaya's forbidden desire has crossed into the realm of the cursed. Mira, Roshni, and Kavya's playful charms are no longer harmless. Every touch now spreads a deadly fire. The silken halls of the palace echo with moans of lust and screams of the damned, but this is only the beginning. In the chapters to come, the glamorous world of love will clash with unholy horror. Temples will fall. Desire will turn into madness. And the most beautiful women of the kingdom will become the most terrifying creatures of the night. What will happen when seduction becomes a weapon and immortality a curse? Will love conquer the horror, or will lust consume the world? Stay with us to find out in the next chapter of this thrilling saga. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Zombie Story Zone, your home for twisted love, horror, and the most seductive nightmares ever told.
Fight or flight will unite as the horror unfolds in the Zombie Story Zone. Adventure never grows old. Welcome to the Zombie Story Zone, where the tales of the undead are widely known. Join the hunt, uncover the fight in the Zombie Story Zone. We'll survive the night. Grin and laughter, it's a crazy mix. With every twist and turn, we'll learn some new tricks. So grab your friends, let's dive right in the Zombie Story Zone. Let the fun begin.